getting government out of our lives and out of our wallets is the only way to build the American class and build our economy going forward. Thank you.
Let's talk about energy a little bit more. I've heard some discussion about home heating oil. This question will be for General Bullock and then Mr. Smith. The question is inflation and the Inflation Reduction Act passed a few weeks ago. It contains subsidies for green energy. Do you think that green energy is the answer to America's energy problems? And if not, what do you think is the answer, General?
Well, first of all, I don't think that was the name of the bill. I think it was the IRS expansion bill. That's what I think it is. And another tax bill. And that's the problem we have, out of control spending. We have career politicians down there that are focused on special interest lobbyists and wealthy political elite. Listen, green energy, renewables, that's good stuff. But we need our fossil fuel in order to have green energy. We cannot divest ourselves from fossil fuel. It is the bread and butter, the heart and soul of our energy independence. And if we don't have it, we're going to be energy dependent. And look what it's done to us. It's made us weak. We are weak. China, Russia, North Korea, Iran are now having their way with us. Our homeland is weak. We are in trouble. And if we don't reverse the energy policies that Biden put in place, that reversed what President Trump had in place, and get Maggie Hassan out of there, we're going to be in big trouble.
All right, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, John, we were energy independent a year and a half ago, and we're not anymore. And that was due to the Trump policies. And I'm the only candidate on this stage that has a comprehensive energy plan, and you can read it on my website. But look, we need to take an all-of-the-above approach. We need to unleash domestic drilling right here at home again. Open up all of the permits, not just a third of them. We need to take suspensions off of publicly leased land. We should be looking at nuclear energy again. And we need to take away and rip away a lot of the EPA regulations that are stifling energy production. You know, Maggie Hassan's answer to our high gas prices was a gas tax holiday. That is not a long-term solution. And the answer to telling the consumers that the answer to high gas prices is go buy a Tesla, that's unacceptable. We need to become energy independent again. And by the way, I would support more gas pipeline here in New Hampshire, something that Chuck Morse opposed just a couple of years ago.
All right, well, let's let Senator Morse weigh in on that since you called him out by name, Senator.
Yeah, I certainly passed legislation in New Hampshire that said all of the above when it comes to energy. We just passed that in the New Hampshire Senate, and that's exactly where this country should be. All of the above should be available to all the citizens in this country, and that's what I'll go to Washington to fight for.
All right, we're going to ask this next question about Medicare, and we're going to start with the General on this one, then we're going to go to Mr. Fenton. Continuing, you can call it whatever you want, General, but we'll stick with the Inflation Reduction Act. Democrats like to call it a bunch of different names, too, now. It authorizes the federal government to negotiate certain drug prices. New Hampshire has a growing senior population. Do you think the federal government negotiating drug prices ultimately helps Americans?
Listen, anything that the government's involved in is not good and doesn't work, period. The worst thing about this whole thing is that Medicare doesn't negotiate anything. They do it with third-party insurance companies. So anyone that knows anything about Medicare and what it doesn't do that, right? President Trump put in a great executive order that lowered insulin to $35. What did Biden do? He reversed it, and Maggie Hassan supported that. It's terrible. Now it's up over several $100s. That hurts people. Medicare was started in 1965. They've stolen from it ever since. That's what career politicians do. That's what the government does. It steals from people. It taxes them and then doesn't even give them a return on their investment. Medicare, we need to take care of our aging population. Definitely. It needs to be reformed. And if we don't reform it, and we don't make it patient-focused, and we don't allow people to be in control of their own health care, medical freedom, then we're just violating our own constitutional rights.
All right, Mr. Fenton.
Thank you. Medicare is one of the many things that sounds good, but it isn't. Government corrupts everything that it touches. And there is a huge, huge price of all government programs. And we often forget that because things sound good, they sound like they're going to help people, or we get mistaken that it's compassion or something like that. But really, at the end of the day, these projects are generally corrupt. They reward cronies. And most importantly, they're both expensive in terms of the human cost and the regulatory cost and the financial cost. in some cases causing financial ruin for citizens, but they're also not effective. It's not like if only we pay enough money and we give these people enough power, it'll finally work. That's not the case. Government is ineffective, and it's not a legitimate role of government to be involved in healthcare in any way. We shouldn't have them involved in any of this at all. We should entirely get government out of it and put the hands in the power of the people. That's where it belongs. Thank you.
All right, let's talk about the IRS a little bit more. This question is for Mr. Smith and for Senator Morse. One more question on the Inflation Reduction Act. This act provides funding for the IRS and for 87,000 more IRS agents. How do your New Hampshire values react to increased IRS scrutiny?
Tell you what, people would have rathered 87,000 new Border Patrol agents than IRS agents. You know, and this of course is done because it's going to be targeting certain individuals and organizations as well. We saw this during the advent of the Tea Party days back in 2010. But look, they're hiring these folks to pay for all of their bloated spending. Here's how you make the economy run again. Number one, you have to make the Trump tax cuts permanent. Number two, you should lower the individual income tax rate. You should lower corporate tax rates to make ourselves more competitive here. Repeal the Jones Act, which puts higher prices on transporting liquefied natural gas as well as oil around the United States. Bring back the Graham-Rudman Amendment from the 1980s, which called for a balanced budget every year. And of course, cut the EPA regulations which stifle development. If you do that, if you do all of those things, you'll have this economy humming again, big league.
All right, Senator Morse, next to you.
Yeah, I really think what Maggie Hassan has supported here is going to hurt all the citizens in the state of New Hampshire. She's going to unleash these people on our small businesses, which are the backbone of our economy. We need to simplify the IRS code. We need to go in and make sure that the IRS is held accountable to the people. They respond to the people. We need to make sure we get rid of things that have been put in place under her. 1099Ks. The little kid that's going out to mow a lawn in New Hampshire is going to have to get a report 1099 if they do over $600 with a family. That's ridiculous. Maggie Hassan has headed us in the wrong direction with the IRS. We need to make sure we get the government out of our lives and we stop putting things in place like this.
All right, let's talk about cryptocurrency. We'll send this to Mr. Fenton first and then to Senator Morse on this one. Mr. Fenton, your website allows contributions in cryptocurrency. Do you favor increased use of crypto in monetary transactions? And what do you say to those who oppose cryptocurrencies because they can be used for illegal transactions?
Yeah, I'm all for any form of money that anybody wants to use. And ideally, I'd like to get government out of the money business, just like we used to have church and state were once together. We wouldn't be able to have this meeting without officials from the church hundreds of years ago. And we should get government out of the money business. We can separate money just like we separated church and state. We can separate money and state. Because government doesn't need to be in the money business. We don't need politicians to tell us what money is. Throughout human history, for thousands of years, people have figured it out, whether it's gold or silver or Bitcoin. And the fact is that our money right now is broken. Politicians broke it. They have unlimited money that they can print from thin air without accountability. And that is now competing against an asset like Bitcoin, which is limited in supply, limited to 21 million coins, cannot be printed from thin air. So the money is broken, and politicians broke it, and everybody should have the freedom to choose better money if they choose to. I chose Bitcoin. I recommend other people choose something else as well because the dollar is a melting ice cube.
All right, Senator Morse?
Yeah, I think government ought to stay out of the way. I think people should be able to choose what they want to do, and that's always been the way that we've thought about it here in New Hampshire. But also when it comes to things like crypto, I think the federal government needs to be careful. I mean, when you have cartels that are taking their money and investing it in places, we ought to know what's going on there. We ought to make sure that we protect that part of it. But nowhere else should the government step in on any of these kinds of transactions.
All right, thank you. Senator, let's move on to the raid at Mar-a-Lago. And this question is for Mr. Smith and for General Bulldog. 2 weeks ago, President Trump's residence at Mar-a-Lago was raided by the FBI on a search warrant for classified documents. Do you approve of the raid, and should Congress hold hearings about the Department of Justice? First to you, Mr. Smith.
Absolutely not. I did not approve of that raid. And all I can say is, thank God Merrick Garland is not on the Supreme Court of the United States. Frankly, I believe the Department of Justice needs to be investigated, perhaps for their collusion with the White House. Did the White House have anything to do with ordering the raid? And I've also called for investigation of the top mid and senior officials at the FBI as well. Look, people have lost such faith and confidence in their institutions in America today because they see them being used as politicized weapons to go after their political enemies. This was such an egregious, unprecedented act to raid the home of President Trump. James Comey told us that Hillary Clinton had brought classified emails home on her laptop, had bleached them, and had it compromised by the Chinese government. Yet we didn't raid her home. And what about Hunter Biden's laptop? You know, there's so many things that haven't gone on that need to be investigated. And so absolutely not, I did not agree with that action at all, and I would like to see them investigated.
Okay, General, next to you.
The Mar-a-Lago raid was absolutely an unmitigated disaster, and it was absolutely wrong, regardless of what former president you invaded their home. It was absolutely wrong. And it gets down to the nitty-gritty of why Americans don't respect and don't trust our Department of Justice. We have a dual justice system here, where people at the top and their families get away with everything, and the rest of us go to jail. We saw it everywhere, with Hillary Clinton, with Hunter Biden, with many others, at the highest levels of our government, misbehaving and doing wrong things. And the American people have to pay the price. Granted, staters have to pay the price. And you know what? Bad actions at the federal level translate to bad actions at the state level and the local level. And this is where we have to be very, very careful, because people's rights matter, and we need to do a lot better with our justice system.
All right, the next topic is border security, and this question is for Mr. Smith and for Mr. Fenton. New Hampshire is quite a bit of a distance from the border, and you all mentioned border security and illegal immigration. How does immigration affect New Hampshire specifically, and if elected to the Senate, what laws would you propose to deal with border and immigration issues? Mr. Smith.
Absolutely. Well, I went to the border back in February. I met with the U.S. Border Patrol Council. I saw the crisis myself firsthand, and I'm proud to say I'm the only one up here with the border security plan that's been endorsed by the U.S. Border Patrol Council. Here's what I would do. Number one, we have to secure the border. We have to finish the wall. It's a disincentive for illegal migrants. We have to go back to the Remain in Mexico policy. We need to end catch and release. We need an e-verify system or something similar to it all around the country, and we need to end sanctuary cities as well. You know, I mentioned it early on. This is a very important issue right now for New Hampshire voters, because we've seen drugs like fentanyl make their way into communities, made it right into Londonderry. It was a tragic case of a toddler who overdosed on fentanyl. So this is a problem we have to get under control. We need to stop allowing them to just go roam about, all the illegal immigrants in our country. They get free flights. By the way, they're the only people who seem to get direct flights anywhere in the country right now. The rest of us can't find any, but they can. We have to go after these things and close our border.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fenton.
Thank you. I'm in favor of a much more open immigration policy. When I talk to people around the state, I talk to Democrats and Republicans, and I see two distinct groups. There's people who want the law followed. They don't want any illegal immigrants. They don't want people breaking the law. They don't want people to be coming across the border by the thousands while other people are waiting and following the rules. And then there's another group of people who has compassion for people that are looking for a better life, who are coming here. And I think it can be solved for both people with better laws. We can enforce the laws and say that you can't come in here if you're breaking the laws, but we should make the laws easier, just like they were for my ancestors and many ancestors of the people in this room. Immigration is great. We should be welcoming people, giving us you're poor, you're sick, you're tired, you're hungry. There are businesses here in New Hampshire that could use those employees, and immigrants are the backbone of America. We have to eliminate entitlements. They can't come here and get a free handout, but if we make it easy for them to come here, that's the best thing for our country, and we can still enforce the law as well. Thank you.